Hey guys, it's Karen, my review for Ralph Breaks the Internet. And what Ralph Breaks the Internet is essentially about is we still focus on Ralph and Vanellope, but things are a bit more complicated this time. One day Vanellope is doing her usual Sugar Rush game, but Ralph ends up adding this news sort of track to it, and this ends up shutting down the game apart. The steering wheel breaks, and basically all of Sugar Rush is completely unplugged. So now Vanellope is kind of lost. She doesn't really know what she wants to do. But when they start to hear whisperings about this new thing called the internet, they decide they're going to use this to their advantage and possibly try to get in there to then buy the parts for Sugar Rush and hopefully, try to, make sure that her game is like plugged back in and get there before the deadline. But as things go on, we start to realize that Vanellope may very well have her own sort of agenda, and that's really all I'm going to say. So, Ralph Breaks the Internet overall, I was hyped for this sequel. I mean, Wreck-It Ralph, I think, is such a great animated movie. I just rewatched it, actually, before this one, and it's such a charming and fun film, but it also is a very emotional film about, being your own hero and trying to become something that, you're not necessarily destined to be, but who you want to be, not juxtaposed to who you should be. And I think that's a really great message that first film had, and John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman just absolutely killed it there. And knowing there was going to be a sequel, I was automatically on board, but when watching the trailers, I was even more excited because it looked rapidly different from the first one. And sure, I definitely did have my worries about, some of the internet and things like that maybe it would get a little too, there'd be a little bit of too much of an overabundance on, all these jokes about the internet. But at the same time, I was really hoping this would deliver, and damn did they ever. Not only did this film deliver in basically every way it possibly could, but I actually do think it's a little bit better than the first one. Ralph Breaks the Internet is a damn great sequel that I think is what most sequels should aim to be, and we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And look, just like many Disney films, I mean, once again, the cast here is just spectacular. Everyone really does bring it, but I actually do think that both John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman do top their work in the first films. We know these characters, we really do love them, but they have an even more, I think, better understanding of who these characters are, and they're able to deepen them in a way that they weren't able to do in the first film, and I thought their chemistry was even better here than it really was in that first film. John C. Reilly especially, I think, stepped it up here, and I really loved what they did, acting-wise with both of them. I thought they both were fantastic here, and I really love them both in this role. In terms of the new characters, though, there's a lot of standouts. I mean, Taraji P. Henson as the character of Yes, I love this character. She basically is sort of like the curator of all of the many likes on, not YouTube, BuzzTube, and, she basically is the one who ends up helping out Ralph and things like that, and I really loved her character a lot. She's a lot of fun. Anytime she comes on screen, she's not in the movie as much as you may think, but anytime she comes on, she is a scene stealer, and I really love she did here. And same with Gal Gadot. I know a lot of people may be worried about Gal Gadot going into this film, but wash all those worries away because she is really great in the role of Shank. It's not a particularly complicated role, but she does a really great job here playing this very tough, badass in this game called Slaughter Race, but she also does have a lot of heart to her, and the relation between her and Vanellope I really enjoyed a lot, juxtaposed to her and Ralph's relationship, and I thought she did a really great job here. The character never felt like like she was out of place here. I thought she fit right in, and same with all the new characters. I really do think everyone just fit right in here, and I really loved pretty much everyone in this film. But now I really want to get to the directing and the writing, because that is what I really think makes this film a cut above its predecessor. I mean, the directing here by Rich Moore and Phil Johnston, it's not just Rich Moore this time around, is really great, because sure, they do retain a lot of the humor and the fun of the first one, which that is very much still here, and it works really well. But they're also able to deepen the characters a lot more. And since they've laid, the groundwork and the foundation, they're able to go in a really different direction. And I thought that tone was very well done here. This film in general feels a lot more realistic than the first one. It feels like it's a lot more emotional, and it doesn't play it nearly as safe as the first one did. And that is one of my complaints with the first one. I think it's just a little bit too safe, but this film really isn't at all. It's a very risky sequel, and I really do applaud the directors for going there. I think the tone is very well done here. It can get a lot darker than the first one, and I really did love that about this film, but the writing as well is just so great here, because right off the bat, I know a lot of people are going to say that, they're going to be worried about what this film really ends up being, but one of the things I really love about this film is that it takes place in the internet, because it's not at all a rehash of the first one. From the first few moments, we established this is going to be a very different film from the first movie, and I think they did such a great job with that. I wish more sequels would try to do that, would try to be something different, wouldn't just try to replicate off of what made the first one so great. And this film shows you can absolutely do that and churn out some amazing work, and they very much do that here. Especially when it comes to our two lead characters, who these two are just great in this movie. Like I already said, John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman, I do think step it up a little bit in this film. But what's even better about it is that the focus is very much on them. This is their film. It's not Ralph's, nor is it Vanellope's. It's both of them as a duo, seeing how they work together, seeing why they depend on each other, but also accepting the fact that they both have very different mindsets, and they both are going in very different directions. Ralph is someone who, he's very by the book. He wants things to be very routinal. He doesn't want things to disrupt how things are. He wants to be in Fix It Felix Jr. forever, and he wants Vanellope to be a part of Sugar Rush forever. Vanellope, on the other hand, kind of wants to venture beyond that. She sees this opportunity. At first, yes, she is very much focused on getting back to Sugar Rush, but once she sees this opportunity of Slaughter Race, we can see how this really starts to entice her. The idea of entering this other world that she's not used to, and that is completely different from other landscapes she's been a part of, is very intriguing to her, and you can understand why she really wants to do that. And the film explores this conflict very well. It's a very mature conflict for an animated kids film, but they do a really great job of leaning into it, and it does not necessarily go the way I was expecting it to. And again, yes, there is a lot of stuff with the internet, but the focus is very much on Ralph and Vanellope, and they do a great job with that here. They did not at all lose focus of what this film was supposed to be, and I really love that a lot. Going to the internet, though, I know that's going to be a lot of people's concern. Like, how does that really work? Does this film really function there? And let me just tell you that that is not something to worry about, because the internet is simply just a backdrop. It's the place in which Ralph and Vanellope can, they are inhabiting. It's just a it's where they are in this film, and that's really all it is. And yes, they do use the internet in a lot of fun and clever ways, but it's not done in a way where they're trying to, shove it in your face. This is not at all the Emoji Movie 2.0. It's just simply the landscape that they're in. That being said, the world building in this film is extraordinary. I mean, there are so many great things going on here. All the characters meet up, like I already touched upon. Yes, I really loved her. But also the character of Knows More, Alan Tudyk, who is back. He's not playing King Candy in this film. He is this character, Knows More, and what a fun character. He's basically like every search engine you've ever encountered, or the character of this eBot who can literally transport you to eBay and is basically like this reminder of like how long you have to pay for something. I mean, just so many clever ideas like that in here, and they do such a great job with that. And I really loved the way they established here. And I mean, just little details here and there. It's just astounding to watch, and I really love what they did. But the other thing that they're able to do with the internet is it's also getting more into some of the emotional baggage going on with Ralph. For example, a major part of this movie is that Ralph has to pay this absorbent amount of money in order to, get the part for Sugar Rush for Vanellope, and he's willing to do basically anything for her. And you really do see how much he really does protect her and how much he does care about her. But this does lead him to become kind of this viral video star. But because of this, his perception is very much divided. While some people find him funny, others are making a mockery of him, and we really do see the effect that this does have on Ralph and what it does do to him. And I thought that was a really bold and ballsy choice overall. Again, it's something that you normally wouldn't see in an animated film, but I was just like, damn, I couldn't believe that this film went there. But there is some really good social commentary about the positive and negative effects on the internet. Again, it's not the film's major focus, but the film is not afraid to really show you some of that, and I really love that a lot. But also, the film does do a very good job with knowing what you want to see. They know that we want to see the Disney princesses. They know that we want to see a lot of stuff Disney-wise, but it knows to not take the focus away from Ralph and Vanellope. In fact, that second trailer, Oh My Disney, is actually very misleading because they don't really stay there for very long. It's very much just a pit stop in that sense. It's a place that the film stops at, but it always keeps going, and especially once the Disney princesses come on screen. I mean, there is this really great gag with them, and yes, the dressing room scene is one of the best scenes of this entire film. I mean, it's so clever, it's so fun to watch them just get all those princesses together, but there are some jokes that you didn't see in the trailer. One with Merida in particular, that is among some of the funniest stuff I have seen all year. I mean, I was roaring with laughter. Not just at that, but at many scenes in this movie, much more than I was expecting to. I actually do think this film is a little bit funnier than the first one, and again, I think they did a really great job with knowing when to be funny, but also not trying to veer away from the focus, which, like I said, is on Ralph and Vanellope, and they very much do keep it there. And again, I think it was just so well done in that regard. And the princesses, they actually do end up helping Vanellope in, giving her this really interesting change of heart, and I really loved where they end up going there. And like I said, the film in general is just a lot more emotional than the first one. The places that this film goes, it's willing to go into some places that the first one just wasn't willing to do. And especially when it comes to the third act, I mean, I was surprised by how dark things were really getting and how intense things were. The ending in particular, it does not necessarily end in the happiest of ways. It is a little bittersweet, but I do applaud the film for going there because this stuff does happen. This is something that is very real within a friendship, and I really love that they went there. It just shows the balls that Disney really does have. And a lot of people are saying, oh, Disney's getting too soft. And this film very much shows you that no, their riskiness is still there. Their approach to do things in a more realistic manner, they still can absolutely do that. And I love the way they end up going in this film. And while the first film did definitely get me feeling a little bit emotional, this one got me even more so. There's one moment in particular where I was kind of on the edge of my seat. The climax especially, I thought was really well done. Better than most, I'd say. It's definitely not a predictable climax in any sense of the word, and I really love where they end up going with it. Also, really without spoiling anything in this movie, a lot of people are going to think that maybe like Taraji P. Henson or Gal Gadot, maybe they turn out to be the villain. And I'll just tell you right now, there is a villain in this movie, but it is not your traditional type of Disney villain. It's something much more sort of complex than that. And again, I really do applaud Disney for going there. It's not what you'd expect, and I'm happy because the whole sort of villain reveal thing, it is getting a little bit old, and this film really does subvert your expectations and does not go in that direction, and it does something far more profound, and I really loved what they ended up doing there. However, as much as I do love the writing to this film, which I really do adore it a lot, there is one thing that keeps this film from me saying it is a perfect movie, and that really is some of the other video game characters. Now, the focus is not on them, so I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a little bit of an issue with is what they decided to affix to Felix and Calhoun, because we did not really see them in any of the trailers, and you might expect they're not in this film a lot, and they're not. But there is one thing in the movie that kind of hints that they're going to be in it a little bit more, that maybe they're going to establish this subplot with them. and it doesn't really go much of anywhere. It's very briefly touched upon, and it's something that I think would have been really cool to see. And sure, they do come back to it at the end of the movie. It's not like they don't really go anywhere with it, because they do go places with it. It's just done off screen, and I understand, again, they want to keep the focus on Ralph and Vanellope. I do get that, but if we would have just gone back to them every so often, you didn't have to do like a back and forth thing constantly, but just every so often we could have cut back to them, I would have actually enjoyed that just a little bit more. Calhoun and Felix were very integral in the first one, and they're not really here, but a lot of people do love those characters, and I just wish they would have given them just a little bit more to do. What we have with them is really great, and Jack McBrayer and Jane Lynch are as good as ever, but I just wish they could have done just a little bit more with them overall. In terms of animation, though, I gotta be honest, I think this is probably the best animation I've seen all year. I mean, not only just the look and the feel of the internet, I mean, there's so much detail, and I think there was so much care that was put into this, and it puts something like the Emoji Movie to shame. I mean, this is how you do it. This is how you really do lay that groundwork. Yes, we see things like YouTube and Facebook, but the film is much more concerned at getting into its own sort of identity, and I enjoyed the look and feel of this film a lot. It is definitely different from the video game world, but I think it is still just as masterful. In fact, I think it's even more masterful than the animation in the first one was. It's so bright, it's so colorful, it really does suck you in, and I just really loved it a lot. But even if you pay attention to in the backgrounds, there are actually some different styles of animation on display. It's a little hard to see at first, but I noticed it in some scenes. There are parts of the movie where there will be a little bit of there will be a little bit of 2D animation or something like that going on. I thought that was actually really cool the way they did utilize that here. Obviously, it's mostly, 3D animation, but there is a little bit of 2D, and I actually thought that was really cool the way that was done. The animation, like I said, it's just fantastic here. I really loved it a lot. The score in this movie is also fantastic. I really love the score to this film. And also, I will say, one of the best moments in this entire film has to be this song, this musical number that Vanellope does get to sing. It's basically her version of like a Disney princess song, and while at first it's really funny, it also, I think, really does define, like, basically the major theme of this film. It really does get into that, and you could just listen to that song on its own, and I think you will still get the major theme of this movie. It very much is still there, and I love that they were able to get Alan Menken back. I mean, they really do go all out here, and I do think it is the best scene in this film. I'm not just saying that because, I am the musical buff that I am, but I truly do think that it is something incredible, and I love that they really did go there. Something that, that's something this film does do a lot. Things that come off as jokes, they eventually do serve a bigger purpose in the film, and that's something I was a little bit surprised by overall. And the editing, this film is extremely well paced. It's a lot quicker than the first film, but that doesn't mean it does away with any of the progression of what's going on, because like I said, this is a much meatier story, and it does take a while to really get into some of the more emotional stuff, but it is always there. You know that the film is eventually going to get really dark. You're just kind of waiting for it, and there are moments in this film that I think are even more emotional than, say, like the cart breaking scene in the first one. There's like a bunch of scenes like that in this film, and I thought that was just a really smart choice overall. I just thought the pacing was really well done here. The first act was a little bit rushed, but again, considering how much we got in the second and third act, which there's just so much there, to the point where I do want to rewatch this film again, because I'm sure I did miss a lot of things. This is probably, for me, some of the best pacing of any animated film this year. I really loved it a lot. Really, at the end of the day, guys, Ralph Breaks the Internet is everything that I wanted it to be. It's what most sequels should try to be. It does a great job of retaining the elements of the first one, but really builds upon a much different type of story. It takes the characters of Ralph and Vanellope in a much more realistic and, I think, dramatic direction, but not in a way that feels forced, not in a way way that feels shoved down your throat, and it's able to use the internet as simply a backdrop. That's not the focus here. The focus is on Ralph and Vanellope. They keep the focus firmly on them, and I think that was definitely a very smart choice overall. This is everything that I really want it to be. For me, it is definitely the best animated tool of the year. Yes, I do think it's a little bit better than Incredibles 2, and it is better than the first one for me. Really, aside from that one flaw, this is a fantastic film that I just really loved a lot. It gave me so much more than I really could have expected, and I really do applaud the film for going in some of the directions that it really did. It is very different from the first one, and for some people that may be jarring, but for me, I love the fact that this film was very much its own thing, and I just absolutely adored everything about Ralph Breaks the Internet, and I'm definitely going to give this film overall an A. Seriously, guys, this is everything that I really wanted it to be. Don't go in this movie thinking it's going to be like the Emoji Movie 2.0 at all. That is definitely not what this film really is. If anything, it's the film that we wanted the Emoji Movie to really be, pretty much. Also, make sure you stay for the credits, please. There are two really great stingers at the end. The last one in particular, I can't recall the last time I laughed that hard. I mean, it was that funny. I knew something probably was going to happen pertaining to where they end up going, but I was not expecting it to be as funny as it really was. But that's really my review of Ralph Breaks the Internet. Let me know what you guys saw of this movie overall, left your thoughts in it. Definitely try to catch this weekend, guys. I think out of all the movies coming out Thanksgiving weekend, this is definitely the one that I think is probably a must-see. I mean, I haven't seen the other ones yet. I am going to see Creed 2 later tonight as well, so maybe that'll change. But for right now, this is the film that you need to see, like, ASAP. But that's in my review. Hope you enjoyed. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.